Hello and welcome back to the Brit Iron podcast. Today we are continuing our run through of our team rankings and team previews, and today is the 25th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals. And of course, joined today by Matt and Sam, who are going to add some valuable opinions on this franchise and their outlook for the 2020 season.
We hope they're valuable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I value them, so
we're gonna add some opinions at least.
Yeah, controversial maybe. We'll see.
Some hot takes in this one. I think.
We do love a hot take, so I guess I'll just kick it off with a simple question: is Joe Burrow set up to win in year one with this franchise?
I'm gonna let Matt field that one first because, I know he's much higher than I am.
Between us three, I'd say there's definitely a little bit of an elephant in the room from looking at our rankings. So we've got James had them out, I believe, at 4 and 12.
Correct,
Sam
4 and 12.
3 and 13. And then I'd come in a lot higher than you both at 8 and 8. And I've got this, I think partly from this, I'm low on the Steelers. So I've got them taking both games over the Steelers this year. Is where I can see Sam Dillion.
It's one of the best young defense in the league, but
I don't like.
I'm looking at the
offense side. But anyway, so back to Joe Burrow. We'll get to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
For me, I think he's a guy, and coming off of his last year in college, he's shown he's a guy he can win, and I think he's got the right attitude to come in with the right weapons around him. That it's just going to be a culture change within that building, and I think if you get AJ Green being healthy, not injured this year, with the other weapons they've got around, if they scheme John Ross right to be used more as a weapon, not out there all the time, but when he is, they're making space for him. I think I like what he's got around him, and I think he's got enough that he can work with them. And I'm not saying they're going to blow it away. This 8 and 8 is going to be like a lot of big offensive victories. I'm saying they're coin flipping their way to it as one score games, but they're just coming out on the right side of it. Is how I'm seeing it.
And the flip side.
So the way I see this, Joe Burrow, a little bit of me thinks he might be a little bit over scouted effectively. I think clearly a very good quarterback, had a historic year with LSU. But when we break down the rest of that LSU team, I mean, they had 14 draft picks out of that team this year. That is ridiculous. He was playing with some incredible talent at LSU. And when he gets to the Bengals, he quite frankly is not going to have a defense as good as he had in Louisiana. He just isn't. He has got a lot of weapons on offense, I'll give him that, but he's still going to be a rookie quarterback in the NFL coming off of a much, much, much reduced off-season plan. So he hasn't been able to do a rookie minicamp, he hasn't been doing OTAs, all these things have all been done over the web. So he's been in meetings and stuff, and he's had plenty of time to go over his playbook, but as of now, he hasn't even been able to take first-team reps with the guys he is going to be lining up with in a couple of months. Now, I agree that he's got amazing pieces around him. Personally, I really like T. Higgins as a red zone threat, and T. Higgins coming in to learn behind AJ Green is perfect for me. I love John Ross as a number 3 receiver. I think he's probably never going to live up to the draft capital that they spent on him. But that, I don't think that's his fault. I think he was overdrafted. They reached for him. But for what he is, and a speedster, and he can really stretch the field, he has value. My issue with this Bengal team, really, is that I think Joe Burrow will struggle coming into the league, and he's not going to just assimilate straight in. And also, when you look at their defense hasn't changed all that much. And I don't think the offense is going to be good enough to suddenly keep them in games. So I think when you look at Joe Burrow from year to year, I don't think he's a massive improvement now between Andy Dalton and what Joe Burrow will be in his first year. Joe Burrow will potentially be great down the line and has got a very high ceiling, in my opinion, but he's not going to come in and suddenly be the answer year one. So I think this is a multi-year rebuild, and I don't think we can expect them to win many games in their first year. Because the other thing I haven't mentioned is they've actually got a really bloody hard schedule here. I mean, I'm looking so week 1 they've got the Chargers. That's a very winnable game.
Very winnable.
Week 2 they've got the Cleveland Browns. I'd probably give Cleveland the edge there.
It's in Ohio as well, isn't it? So
yeah, I've given that as they've gone 1-1 on the year. Mine, Cleveland, both winning their home games essentially for that one.
Week 3 you've got the Eagles. That's probably a loss. Then you've got the Jags. That's a winnable game.
Yeah,
winnable, but
then you've got the Ravens and the Colts back to back, both away, which I don't think are winnable games, either of them. I think both the Ravens and the Colts are much better teams. You've then got the Browns in Ohio, obviously in Ohio, but in Cincinnati, which, again, that might be a winnable game, but I'd still probably give the Browns the edge. Then you've got the Titans. Then you've got the Steelers coming off your bye. I don't think they win either of the games against the Steelers. I think
that's the big difference on the predictions. That's one of the large places where it's flipping it 2 wins either way or 2 loss.
I feel like if they're going to beat the Steelers, it will be that one off the bye week. Although it's away, I feel like that could be the one. Burrow's had time to develop into the league. That if they're going to beat the Steelers, it will be that week, I reckon.
I can't see it happening. Not that Steelers defense. That Steelers defense is going to be in the question in that debate for. They're going to be vying to be the best defense in the league. They really are that good. They've got 2 players on that defense who at the end of the year, next year, could both very well be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. And that's 2 players on their defense. They've got talent everywhere on that defense. I honestly cannot see how a rookie quarterback is going to come out and throw on them. And that offense is going to be good as well. They've got a good receiving core, a good running back core.
For them.
For me. Off the bye week, that's the opportunity for them to beat the Steelers. I know they're playing later on as well, but I think off the bye week, that's their only opportunity to beat the Steelers this season.
I like the Cincinnati Bengals going forward. I don't like them for this year. If you give them 2 years' time, when they've had a chance to build that defense up a bit and put some more players around Joe Burrow, but I think there would be a couple of players that really need to step up. You need to see much better production from Joe Mixon in the early stages of the season, because for the first half of last season he was utterly appalling. I think he was averaging less than 2 yards a carry, which isn't really acceptable from a running back. He pulled it back in the second half of the season, and he is a very talented back, but he needs to have a big year. They need all of their players to stay healthy, and they need Joe Burrow to come out and be very good from day one if they want to go 8-8, and I don't see that happening. I don't think it's realistic to expect Joe Burrow to do that.
I think for me, where I've sort of pitched is I could easily see it if they lose. Let's say take away the division games I've put 3 in division wins, one at home to Cleveland, and then both the Pittsburgh games. If those flip, I could see him easily as well going 5-11. I'm saying I could see him stealing some wins. I just for me, I've got 5 of those wins coming after their bye on the back end of the season once Burrow's had a bit of time to acclimate. And I feel like this Bengals team could be one where if they get a couple of wins strung together, could just get something rolling. I'm kind of playing off the character of people of like what you've seen of Joe Burrow. I think if you get him on a bit of confidence, get him on a bit of a hot streak, he'll settle into it quicker. I think if they come out and lose their first, let's say 6-7 on then it's ropes of the season. But I think if they can nick a few wins and then come off the bye and really get something rolling, they might be able to sneak a few sneaky wins that they don't deserve necessarily.
You could see them going to Washington and winning. Yeah. You could see them beating the Giants, and you could see them beating the Dolphins. So that's 3 on the trot. But after the bye, I can see them picking up 3 wins after the bye, and maybe sneaking 2 before. So I would probably say that 5-11 is probably the ceiling for this team.
Yeah. I think to be fair, that's sort of the middle ground between where we've started. I think it just depends. There's a few games where I think it comes into how we take on other teams. But I think this is the scene. If it does all click, if by that mid-season point, I think just because of the number of weapons, I can see them being a nightmare to scheme against offensively.
Yes, but I think if you're a Cincinnati fan, you should be looking at this not as a negative, and you should think, right, if we can go 5-11, that's a very successful season. You get T. Higgins a year in the system, let him learn behind AJ Green. You get you get Joe Burrow a year in the system, let him learn that offense. No need to expect anything major off of him. Then you have another year's draft, you put some more defensive pieces because they've got nice offensive pieces around there, and you plan for the years coming. And I think this time in a year, if you add 3 or 4 nice pieces to that defense, suddenly you've got a team that's forming.
I think one of the big things for me, and you sort of touched on it, is Joe Mixon being so quiet. And I think this does swing into the fantasy side of things, that he can't do that again. In either version of the conversation, you can't be having that, because he's a guy that is going to be drafted relatively highly. He's probably within the top 3 rounds, I'd imagine, in most leagues, and he can't do what he did last time again. And there is that concern, will he come out and just lay a few eggs and lose you a few weeks? And also, is he going to hold out at some point? There is a lot of red flags around Mixon where people could be burnt. I don't think he will. I think they'll get stuff done, but there's just a little bit of a red flag for me there. But I think if he's around, especially if, let's say, if you're picking in the 3rd and you want to go running back heavy, take him. But just be aware that there's a lot going on. Like,
got to be very careful with that sort of pickup. Sticking with the fancy side of things, though, and looking at that receiver room. Obviously, you've got AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, amongst a few others, and John Ross as well, which I know, Sam, you are high on as a sort of a flex option. Where do we rank sort of those first 2 players I mentioned, AJ Green and Tyler Boyd? Where are you looking at picking them in a fantasy sort of draft?
I think AJ Green, if he comes back in healthy, stays healthy, he'll be pretty similar to what he's done. He's not going to blow the league away, but he's going to be a solid wide receiver one, like a guy you can sort of pin in your lineup, and as long as he doesn't go down, play. I think for me, Tyler Boyd it's a difficult one. It's really hard to see where he's going to be pitched, because he was good last year, so that was without AJ Green, but he wasn't incredible. He didn't seem to fully grasp it at points. It was still a little bit of inconsistency for me on his week-to-week scoring.
I think you could see if AJ Green comes back and gets injured, then Tyler Boyd you could get real value on him, because people aren't necessarily considering him as that kind of wide receiver 1 bordering 2. So I think if AJ Green's out, then all the opportunity and the targets will be there for Boyd to be quite successful for fantasy. But I think if AJ Green is playing, then the red zone targets and the what you'd be after then from Boyd is the touchdowns, which I think there will be less of, because you've got now that T Higgins is coming in. T Higgins could be a potential touchdown machine next year. He's 6'4", an absolutely massive receiving target in the red zone. When you pair that across from AJ Green, suddenly you've got 2 big-bodied, great kind of receivers who are great at just chucking the ball up there and they'll go get it. I can't imagine that Boyd would be a great red zone target. And then for stretching the field, whilst he's healthy, John Ross is your field stretcher. When you've got a guy who runs a 4-2-3, he's on the perimeter stretching the field. So I can't see Boyd being a massive fantasy option. I think he's a very good player and he will be very useful on that team. But I would rather, in the occasion that AJ Green is healthy, starting all year, I'd rather have T Higgins for the touchdown upside. I think the other player on this roster that I quite like, who could very, very easily go undrafted, is CJ Uzama. With a rookie quarterback coming in, it's not unusual that rookie quarterbacks rely on tight ends as dump-off options. Yeah. And I think you could see an uptick in targets for CJ Uzama and the running backs. So it would not surprise me if you don't see Joe Mixon getting a slight uptake in targets, and CJ Uzama. Now that Tyler Eifert's gone, there's less competition there. There's probably a slightly bigger chunk of that offense for him.
And I think one guy to watch on the tight end track, obviously this is Uzama, but Drew Sample, he was mainly a blocking guy, but he started to come out of that and he was started to be used more towards the end of last season. So I'm not saying go out draft him, don't do anything stupid, but he's someone to keep an eye on for how he develops throughout the year. And if Uzoma doesn't step up and sort of grab the opportunity, it could be Sample. If it depends, I think for this, it's whoever gets the better chemistry with Burrow off the bat.
Yeah,
we'll see some value in. But I'm not. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one to watch develop. Obviously, Uzoma is going to be the tight end one in that team to start off with. Yeah. But I think Sample's worth watching.
I think I'll be looking at him more in a dynasty format.
Where
towards
you've
the
got time to
end of the
develop.
draft.
a lot of these players are going to be more dynasty considerations, just because you're probably going to automatically assume Joe Burrow's probably not going to come out and throw for 4,500 yards and 25 more touchdowns. I think a successful year for Burrow is to come out, throw somewhere between 3,800 and 4,200 yards, throw around 24 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, and keep the picks and fumbles to a minimum. I think if Joe Burrow comes out and has a rookie year similar to Daniel Jones in terms of stat pacing, then everyone will be happy with him and everyone will go, yep, he's on the right track. So
I think where I would pitch it for him, the potential sort of ceiling, we saw Baker Mayfield did it, came out and just kind of lit it on fire. Obviously, he hasn't had the full off season, but I think that's the ceiling for Burrow for me. If he gets a good start and gets the confidence up, that's sort of where I'm seeing him. If not, then I think around the Daniel Jones range is a good outcome for him.
Yeah, I'm not too high on Joe Burrow, to be honest with you. Although he had one incredible year at college, you look at his stats before that, they're not as good. So I'm intrigued to see whether he can keep riding that wave from his senior year in college. And it's quite exciting for the Bengals to get a player who has that ability to go and put up those numbers. It's just whether he can sort of transfer it through to the NFL level.
Well, you'd hope so. And for the Bengals, for many years they were a very good team under Andy Dalton.
Yeah,
they're not that far removed from that.
They're not far removed at all. So if they can put a couple players, I think realistically Joe Burrow is probably a bit more talented than Andy Dalton. Like you no one's gonna argue that. So if you can have multiple 11-5 seasons with Andy Dalton, there is no reason that in the space of 2 years you guys aren't right back in that kind of 11-5 season range, and you're looking at the playoffs.
And that could make that division incredibly interesting. The Steelers, the Ravens,
suddenly
the Bengals, and arguably the Browns as well.
You've got 4 teams that could all contend there, which makes it one of the more competitive divisions in football.
And I think it has been a little bit over the years with the Steelers and the Ravens, but it'd be interesting to see how the Bengals can go and compete there in the years to come. But unless you guys have any further points, I believe that is all we have time for today. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you boys for your time.
Anytime, mate.
Please be sure to check out our YouTube account. Go like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And also be sure to check out our Instagram account. We're at the Brit Iron, and it's the same for our Twitter as well. And we're also setting up a listener league, as we've mentioned previously, where we'd like you guys to get involved. And there is a reward at the end for the number 1 team. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So cheers guys, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.